And as you can see, would you? I hit 6:04. I'm assuming everybody's going to. All right. Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Attendance.
All council members are present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 3, approval of the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell, Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Okay, move on. Open forum. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the council on an item not listed on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, does the council have any questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn.
Aye.
Okay, reports and presentations. We have Erica Van Nieuwenhuis here from SDSU for a full update and all the exciting things that are happening in Hobo Day this week.
Council members, and happy Hobo Week. So last week we had a Senate meeting and we heard from the Hobo Day Committee who came and spoke about the events that are happening this week. We passed the Agriculture and Biosystems Engineering Graduate Student Association Constitution, so they are now officially a club on campus. We passed Resolution 22-7-R, and that is SA recognizes October as Disability Awareness Month. We swore in our new advisor, Advisor Zavaleta Cheek. And then on Sunday, Student Association had the opportunity to participate in Paint the Town, kind of an opening to Hobo Week. So we painted the Visit Brookings windows, and then it rained, so all of our paint washed away. But we got to participate in that, and that was really fun. Last night, we heard from Dr. Warmadal about the Sodexo transition, and he gave a very lengthy update, which was great. He said all but 2 locations, food locations on campus, are up and functioning, full capacity, open lunch and supper. They have added new things to the market, such as a soup and salad bar, and just getting things back up to what they were before this transition happened. He also said that the Starship robots are delivering again, and mobile ordering is back up and running. So students are very happy about that. We passed 3 student organization constitutions. Those were the Data Science Club, the Veterinary Medicine Professional Program, and then the Men's Hockey Club. So they are all officially clubs, organizations on campus now. We passed Resolution 22-6-R, which is SA supports for requiring senators to attend 4 diversity events on campus before their term is done. And then we have a little bit of a scooter update from Senator Grote. He has been working with the city and our Vice President, Michaela Willis, to kind of get some information about having electric scooters on campus. So a little update from him is that Senator Grote is researching companies, and he has personally been talking to 2 companies in particular. And then we are getting research from Vice President Willis about the cities and campuses that currently have these scooters and how they've implemented that to succeed. And then one campus update is it's Hobo Week on campus. We have a lot of things going on right now, gearing up for the parade and the football game this weekend. And then with the football game, we're not doing student tailgating just so that all students can enjoy the game and enjoy the festivities that day. And with that, I will stand by for questions. Thank you.
All right. Got off easy again. Thank you. Okay, go right to, or we don't have any contracts or change orders this evening. Let's go right to ordinances, first readings. Item 8A, introduction and first reading of ordinance 22-038, 2022 budget ordinance.
That's me.
And Paul's going to do it for us because Eric is ill.
Eric is actually phone. We also have Ashley and Jake here as well. You know, throughout this process, if you want to go and move to the first slide there. Thank you. Throughout this process, it's been about a 6-month process. The slide here shows June or August. Actually, it starts early as March and May, where we start bringing budgets together, start talking preliminarily about the process. And so this is a very lengthy process, and at the end of the day, this is what it boils down to, is bringing forward to the City Council the budget ordinance, which takes 2 readings. As I mentioned earlier, Jake, Ashley, and Eric really spearheaded this process with the department heads, culminating together with the employees, bringing all the information together year after year, trying to figure out how we can make a balanced budget for the City Council. And so you can see in early September, Jake brought forward the first part of the budget to the City Council, where we talked about the general fund, the capital improvement fund, the enterprise funds, transitioned then to the capital improvement fund and then the outside agencies. Now we're to the point where in October and November, we're going to be bringing you forward with this first public hearing of the budget ordinance and then the second budget ordinance in November, and then finally the adoption of the 10-year capital improvement plan and the fee schedule. So a lot of work has gone into this process, and then here in 4 or 5 short months, we get to start all over again. You want to go to the next slide? As you can see, the budget compared to 2022 to 2023, you're seeing about an $8 million, $8.5, $9 million increase over the 2-year time period, or compared to last year. A large majority of that is found in your capital improvement fund. As you can see, it's increased about 23%, but that really will be attributed to the large street improvement projects we have last year. We had a lot of road construction occurring this year. We'll have probably even more next year, but that means that we're investing into those projects and taxpayer infrastructure. So we're looking at not only 22nd Avenue, but also 20th Street improvements as well, and those are quite significant investments into the street infrastructure system. You also see some increase in the general fund as well as the enterprise fund, but once again, the predominant lion's share of the increases in the capital improvement fund. We'll talk a little bit more what that means in the next slides to come. So if you want to go ahead and transition that. So very high level look at this. Once again, overall, it's about $9 million increase compared to 2022. What we are seeing is a strong increase in sales tax revenues for the general fund. We are, as I noted, some large capital projects that will occur in 2023, and then some staffing increases that we're recommending to City Council. The first one noted on the right-hand side in the yellow is assistant to the city manager. Right now, there's going to be a large investment occurring from the school district into community or 2 neighborhood schools. Our thought from the staff's perspective is we know that we're going to be coming up to a period of time within the next 10 to 15 years where we're going to have limited land available for development. What can we do within those neighborhoods, within specific existing land uses, to really capitalize and invest in neighborhoods? And so that's going to be the primary job of that individual as we bring them on into the staff. Solid waste equipment operator is another additional staff, and the park technician. We've noted quite a few times throughout this process and over the years that with our analysis compared to peer cities in South Dakota as well as college towns, we are very understaffed. Quick example, we have about 3 times the acre of park land compared to our peer cities, but 1/3 the park staff. Put that in perspective, we have roughly 10,000 trees that we maintain with 4 individuals. And so I know this is a request from the park board as well as staff as well to bring them the needed employee for their system. I noted down below the sales tax revenue. We're looking at about a 10% budgeted growth for 2022. Now, once again, we are always very conservative with our projections as well as the budget. Right now, we're setting at about a 15% increase in sales tax. Once again, we're budgeting for a 10% growth, assuming that there might be a decline in the last quarter of this fiscal year, potentially going into next year. So that's why we're budgeting a 2% growth. Now, for those community members that are watching, because we are so very conservative, what we do as staff is we then transition all excess funds into a fund called the City Council Financial Policy Projects. In that fund, City Council knows with at any moment's time how much money is available at their fingertips. And what we do is send all excess monies there to utilize for projects that we couldn't afford because we budget so conservatively. As staff, we are recommending those future dollars to be used for the police facility to buy down any interest as much as possible. Some initiatives that are noted on the right-hand side: employee development. Last year, City Council did give us additional dollars for employee development. That not only went to internal funds for furthering education for our employees, additional training for the police department, and then training for all of our employees. That includes not only the base level employees, the frontline employees, mid-level, and then leadership team as well. And so we greatly appreciate those efforts. Then, of course, software improvements. We're a lean organization. Whenever possible, we look for software improvements to do things that we don't have employees for. And so there's a lot of software improvements that are budgeted within, that are noted within this budget. Go to the next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, we strive to provide the City Council with a balanced budget. That means money in, money out. We're not going to go above our expected revenues, because that's when we end up creating a deficiency where you might have to cut programs that the citizens desire or lay off employees. That's never, ever a goal of ours. That we always want to achieve that we have a balanced budget for the City Council. So you can see $19.1 million in the general fund is what we're expecting for revenues, and then expenditures going out is that 19.1. We always talk about our revenue sources. A majority of our revenue, as we always note, is sales tax. We're projecting that to be right on 45% of our overall revenues, and property tax is about 20%. For those watching at home, usually municipalities across the nation, property tax is usually the largest revenue source. If you look at the breakdown of your property taxes here, if you're a resident, about 16 to 18% of your property taxes actually come to the city. So we are reliant on a diversification of revenue sources, once again, the predominantly being sales tax. And we also have one of the lowest municipal sales or property taxes for municipalities across the state of South Dakota, first-class cities. I believe Watertown is just beating us by 0.2%. Next slide. So this is our capital improvement plan. We often spend a lot of time on this fund specifically. It really comprises any large project over $25,000. As you can see, for 2023, we're anticipating right around $13.6 million in revenues, and expenditures is about $14.4 million. You can see that there is a portion of that committed towards bond payments, as well as the performing arts payment of about $900,000 in the Brookings Health System. The rest is really geared towards all the departments. A majority of that, of course, street projects. Streets are very expensive to maintain, but once again, if we don't spend adequate dollars on our streets, they become a larger expense in the very near future. You want to go to the next one? One thing that a lot of people should be aware of is the City Council's strategic objectives and goals. This document can be found on the City Council's website, within the city's website. It outlines a number of projects, goals, and objectives. A lot of those are met within this year's budget. It's a 5-year plan, and we really consider a lot of these high-level recommendations as we look at the strategy that the City Council has put together here roughly 2 or 3 years ago. But more importantly, a lot of these goals and objectives are met with this budget, and hopefully we can achieve more in future years. Next slide. And that's a brief overview of the budget. I would be more than happy to answer any questions, but I know Eric and Ashley and Jake are here as well to provide any insight on any questions council or the public may have of this budget. One last uploaded for the public to view. For those that don't enjoy looking at 300 pages of budget documents, it's a 2-page document that really briefly explains at a high level this $61.5 million budget for the average citizen.
Okay. Is there any public? Obviously, this is first reading. We'll have second reading next meeting. Any comments or questions from council? Councilman Collins.
Yeah, I have a question about position. I've been contacted by folks out there and also folks from the city who say that we're too top heavy. And I'm wondering if you can explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a large investment with schools into 2 primary neighborhoods. But more importantly, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've really taken an in-depth look at the growth of Brookings. And what we've known for a long time is that we're limited by our growth here in this community. But over the last 5 years, we really haven't done much to really advance opportunities here internally. We've changed code. to an extent to allow denser development. Mike and his staff are constantly looking at opportunities, but really to look at programs, to really invest a lot of staff time, we just don't have that available. As I mentioned, we have a very lean organization, and if council wants to commit to the future of Brookings and neighborhoods, then we have to add a position to do that. We just cannot do that with the existing staff, or if that's the decision of council, then we have to look at identifying areas to cut.
Couldn't we use that extra dollars for other positions that are needed? Folks that are working, in forestry or something like that. I know we need positions there in some other spots.
So within the budget, there is an additional forestry position. We're also adding, if council approves tonight, the addition of another half-time person for the senior citizens facility and services. So within parks, you're getting 2 new positions within 2 years. That's probably the most that most departments have seen in most years. Once again, with this added position, it's really about an investment for the future of Brookings. Knowing that we've been doing what we can over the past 5 years or so, but really so much more is needed for this community. And by adding this position, we can really look at policies, programs, and opportunities to invest in those neighborhoods and to capitalize on the investment that the school's making as well in those neighborhoods. There's a lot of existing infrastructure in place. The housing study that was just completed by the city and county jointly identifies that not just new houses is what's going to save the day. It's really looking at your existing housing stock and looking for opportunities there for all levels of the economy. And that includes people that can afford brand new or people that maybe are looking for used homes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple of comments, and then I had, in the 6 or so years that I've been on the council, I've really appreciated the evolution of the budgeting process. It, as you noted, is an elongated process, and I'm sure for staff it feels even more elongated, but I think that incremental approach to the budget does lend itself to transparency and lots of interaction for us as counselors, but also members of the public that have interest along the way. A couple of advancements that I've really appreciated and I think can be revealing for folks if you're interested. That 10-year capital improvement plan, I think, is a huge step forward. It really helps us have on the radar considerable investments that need to be made in existing facilities and capital investments that will be coming. Because it's 10 years in length, it gives us a long view, but it also gives us an opportunity to adjust if we need to. And so I think as a counselor, it's been helpful to feel like we don't have surprises springing up in terms of, man, 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to have some deferred maintenance that's going to crash any other grand plans we have. So I've appreciated that, and I'd encourage members of the community to really dig into that 10-year CIP. That capital improvement plan gives you a good sense of where our priorities are, and maybe more than priorities, where our obligations are. The other thing that I have appreciated in recent years is more transparency around the requests that come from departments. That really is kind of the origin of this process, getting a sense of the wish list that they develop and how those get whittled down to the priorities that then eventually end up getting passed. And I think to Councilor Collins' point, we recognize that there are staff needs in every department and there would be opportunities for growth in most any department. The challenge is determining how you prioritize those items. And I think that assistant position makes good sense in that it is really a cross-departmental type of position that will touch a variety of priorities in a variety of departments. We've had a lot of conversation in the last 5 years around the need to reinvest in the core of the community, and that can't just continue to be on our priority list and can't just continue to be a talking point in campaign season, but we genuinely need to put some energy and effort and investment around how we reinvest in those core neighborhoods and take advantage of existing infrastructure investments from community partners like the school district in some of those core neighborhoods that I think right now are an underutilized asset for the community. And I think we could embed that position in a department, which would silo it a bit, but I think the fact that it would have direct interaction with the top of the organization is going to make it more effective. The question I have related to staffing was recognizing that this budget that would be passed wouldn't take effect until January of 23. Would we be prevented from advertising or recruiting folks for these 3 positions as soon as the budget is passed? I'm just wanting to get a sense of how quickly we can see the gears turning on what I know are high need positions in a
Yeah.
tough environment.
Yeah, I think we can advertise as soon as the council passes the budget, knowing that we could have someone on board as soon as January. Um, Ideally, it's always difficult to advertise during the holiday season. I always encourage staff to hire it in the spring because it's a little easier to hire. But at the same time, there's a lot of people interested in coming to Brookings, or people internally and within the community that would fit a lot of these positions that would fit the positions that we have opening next year.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we'll have second reading on this, in action on this item, November 8th meeting. Item 8B, introduction and first reading on ordinance 22-035, an ordinance amending chapter 94, article 6, division 5, pertaining to sections 94-467, 94-469, 94-470, and 94-473 for the purposes of amending sign ordinances. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will review this item for us.
Council members, the ordinance before you tonight is updates and revisions to the section of the signed ordinance addressing various topics, but primarily related to the electronic message display signs. In your packet and on the slide, it kind of goes through each of the proposed changes, put in an overall summary. What we're looking at is a prohibition against EMD signs in historic districts. We really felt that the electronic message display signs is not something that's really associated with the historic properties, historic characters. Then we also put in buffers so that if you are within 200 feet of a historic district or a residential district, you can still have the electronic message display signs, but they come with limitations on the size and the height. There is an exception that's written into the code for if you're in a corner lot. We also have what's called an intersection safety zone, so within 30 inches and 10 feet, you have to try and keep that clear sight triangle. So if a sign would theoretically fall within that intersection safety zone, that then they could be a little bit higher. The primary reason for some of the height limitations is we felt that if you're eligible to have a sign, you should be restricted to either the height of the primary building or the maximum height so that it wouldn't be obtrusive to adjacent residential properties that might be adjacent to that sign location property. There is one exception that the Planning Commission discussed and felt it was very important is the Edgebrook Golf Course is zoned residential. They felt that it was not applicable, and so that particular property is excluded for purposes of the sign ordinance. They were very adamant that the availability to have EMDs along that commercial corridor with the new interchange was something that they wanted to make sure was available, and they felt that the golf course really isn't a residential property and wouldn't have the same or should not have the same restrictions as other owner or renter occupied properties should. In addition to this, there's also restrictions on some of the lighting. And so we worked with staff from Daktronics that were very helpful in this process. They gave us some really good suggestions, guidance, and actually came out with some of the tables that you see there in the ordinance. And then if we have the opportunity, I want to switch to a map. So this is our GIS. A little bit of an idea. The red area here, those are the 4 different historic districts that we have in the city of Brookings. And so within those red areas, EMDs would be prohibited with the exception that you can have a portable one. And so those portable ones you typically roll in. It's for special events. They're very short duration of time. And then upon completion of the event, they're moved. So it's more looking at permanent type signage. The yellow represents the 200-foot buffer around each of those historic district properties. And then the blue is a 200-foot buffer around the residential properties throughout the community. So essentially, those white areas or clear areas are the areas in the community where there would be no restrictions for electronic message display signs, and they would just have to comply with our traditional zoning ordinances. So you can see down here, by removing the Edgebrook Golf Course, it did open up this quadrant here. When we previously looked at it, I think there was these tiny slivers here was the only places that you could have at that quadrant, and that was a significant discussion with the Planning Commission, and they were really wanted to make sure that that opportunity was available down in this area, especially with the interchange, and as businesses are looking to move or develop in this location. And then as you continue along 20th Street South, there's a few other areas that become available. Any questions on kind of the mapping location areas?
So just to be, I just want to make sure I'm sure on this. All the white signs can be put?
They would be eligible, yes.
Okay. Can you show me 20th Street South and 22nd Avenue South real quick again?
So this is that 20th Street South and 22nd Avenue South intersection there.
Thanks, Mike.
Is that your,
Yeah, it'd
Okay.
be available for any questions. So the actual changes that are a little bit highlighted, if there's any questions on that. Otherwise, I have no additional information.
thanks, Mike. Is there any, council have any more questions or comments? Councilmember Tilton Burn?
City staff for working with Daktronics. I think that's a great company to be able to partner with to kind of get some industry perspective. And so I appreciate both Daktronics' willingness to participate in those conversations and the collaboration that happened from the city staff perspective. My question is, in regards to temporary signs, do we have a time frame on how long a temporary sign can be standing?
There's multiple types of temporary signs, but typically with a portable sign, they get a permit. It varies. Usually 7 days is typically the max you can be in a particular location. Occasionally, we give exemptions. I go back to when COVID first hit. We worked with the health service providers and Daktronics, kind of waived some of those regulations. Daktronics offered up a portable EMD, and we were kind of relaying community information. But for the most part, they're usually 7 days max.
Thank you.
Thank you. Comments, we'll move on to item 8C, introduction and first reading. Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A different opinion than everybody else, but I guess I'm just that guy. But I think this is too restrictive. I know the folks from Daktronics helped with this, and I get that. I believe that in the future they're going to suffer for this. I believe that it's going to come back on them, that the own city where they grew up in is putting restrictions. I think it's going to hurt businesses on 20th Street South and 22nd Avenue South, further east, west, north, south. I think we're just being too restrictive on this. That's just my opinion, folks.
One thing I will comment and just clarify, some of those blue areas that Mike noted, they are allowed, but they're allowed as a smaller sign. And so they're just fully allowed according to code in those white areas, but in those blue areas on 6th Street, 22nd, Main Street, they will still be allowed just as smaller signs. And some of them are already meeting that existing code. So for example, you drive down Main Street, they're already meeting it. And so they are allowed. The other thing is kudos to Mike and Ryan and of course Daktronics and everyone who worked on this process. I know that there's a lot of different code out there, and the idea is to try to formulate that to fit what's best for Brookings. So thank you, Mike and staff.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next item, item 8C, introduction, first reading on ordinance 22-036, an ordinance pertaining to an application for a conditional use to establish a hot mix asphalt plant in an agricultural district. Mike Struck, our community development manager, director will review this item.
Thank you. The ordinance before you tonight is for a conditional use permit for Bose Construction. They're looking to replace their existing asphalt mixing plant. This is a little bit of a unique situation in that they were previously outside the city limits, went through the conditional use process to establish the asphalt mixing plant through the county. I believe it was completed in 90, 91 timeframe, and then in 94 they were annexed into city limits. When a project is replaced, updated, renewed, they have to go through the process all over again, this time with the city. Essentially, they're replacing their existing equipment in relatively the same location, kind of at their existing site on South 22nd Avenue. They are making some improvements to create additional capacity to meet today's needs and also gain efficiencies. But it's a little bit of a unique conditional use because it's an established use. It just happened to be approved by the county. Now it's inside city limits, so our zoning requires us to go through this process. The applicants are here today. This is a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission for approval, and I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Any council questions or comments? Council Member Specker.
I have a question about environmental issues with the asphalt plants. I just looked it up quickly, and somewhere they were saying that it's like 1,600 feet within a residence or yards. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I'm assuming that if there are environmental concerns, they were addressed when the plant was first built relative to the housing that's just north of that plant. But since they're doubling capacity, are there any environmental restrictions for this type of plant?
Not based upon our zoning code. We don't have any particular restrictions. Our code is somewhat vague when it comes to these types of standards. With our conditional use standard, such uses shall be located in areas where the odor and noise will not be detrimental to the adjacent property owners, and then traffic to and from the site shall not travel on residential streets. Well, 22nd Avenue is one of our arterials, so it meets the traffic criteria. As far as odor and noise, where this location is, it's kind of south central portion of their site, so there is quite a distance away from residential uses. There's from a distance perspective, and then with our prevailing wind patterns, generally, it blows odors to the southeast of town.
Good question.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a more general question. On this topic, maybe you can clarify. If you receive a conditional use permit, is there a timetable where the organization that issues it revisits that conditional use, or is it just in perpetuity?
It all depends on one of the conditions that you put on it. Sometimes they'll put a condition of it's good for a certain time period, and then they want to reevaluate it. Typically, when we have those types of stipulations, it's usually associated with home occupations, and it's usually tied to that owner only, so that if they were to sell the house, a new owner would have to come forward on a home occupation. On the business side, I don't recall putting time restrictions on it, but I don't know, Steve, if you recall any that we've done in the past?
I don't recall any. It is fairly difficult to impose time limits where you've made a substantial capital investment. So I think that would be doubtful that we would have that kind of restriction.
Again, this is more of a general comment or nature, not to this project specifically, but this project made me think about just the changing nature of a community like ours and how a neighborhood can evolve over time or a corner of town can evolve over a 20-year, 30-year span. And maybe there isn't a mechanism in place to go back and look at conditional use permits, given the changing nature triggers that in our community right now. But I understand your note about a capital investment being a challenging thing to go back and relook at.
Well, I think the two-step process of evaluating all of the commission level, gives you at least two chances to look at the future and try to predict direction of the community. That's all I can offer, I guess.
Any other questions or comments from council? All right, we'll look at this a second time on November 8th meeting. And our next item, public hearings and second readings. Item 9A, second reading and action on ordinance 22-033, an ordinance pertaining to the vehicle parking spaces for electric vehicles in the city of Brookings, South Dakota. Paul will review this item.
It now has 3 charging units for within public areas. The ordinance presented tonight allows the city manager to assign electric vehicle charging parking areas. The city agreed to designating charging spots within the recent agreement for the fast charging and slow charging unit at the activity center. If approved, staff would market and educate to the community of the designated spots at the activity center. Proper signage would ensure that spaces are clearly marked, and staff does recommend approval of the ordinance as presented.
Thanks, Paul.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, does the council have any questions or comments?
I do have one clarification.
Please.
If the ticket that might be issued for a violator in that parking spot is paid within 3 days, typically the fine would be $30. I quoted, the full fine. If there was no compliance with the ticket, then it ends up going to the court system, and then you have court costs. But I did want to clarify that parking tickets typically are $30 if paid within 3 days, and $35 if paid within, if not paid within 72 hours. So, and then if it's not paid or there's not compliance, then it goes to the court system.
Okay. Any other questions or comments after that? Please call the roll.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tiltonburn,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Item 9B, second reading and action on ordinance 22-034, an ordinance authorizing budget amendment number 9 to the 2022 budget. Paul Brasino, our city manager, will review this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Amendment is broken down into 2 primary segments. The first one is a requirement for all full-time employees. The second is committing more to our seniors by taking a part-time position to a full-time coordinator position. In the spring of 2021, the city set salary increases for 2022 for all employees. In 2022, all employees have the ability to attain up to 4% merit. No COLA is offered in 2022. Staff could not have predicted the historical increases for inflation in 2022 when we're projecting out the budget in 2021. Many peer cities, the state, and many counties and entities have given a 6% increase in 2022 and/or additional mid-level increases. However, to stay competitive yet ensure a sustainable future, administration is recommending a one-time $2,000 compensation supplement for all full-time employees. With increased sales tax at 15%, the recommendation is sustainable as it does not increase future budgets like a merit or a COLA would. If approved, the total impact to the budget is about $109,000. The approval will grant some financial relief to employees who are committed to the organization and the community and further assist with our retention efforts. The second item is an amendment that commits funds from the 3B to take a part-time position to full-time. The administration is recommending increased commitment to the activity center, with the primary services being the senior programming. The senior committee is in full support of this recommendation. A full-time opening would be advertised as a coordinator and part of the Parks Department. Staff recommends approval of both these amendments.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there public comment on this item? Seeing none, close public comments. Any comments from City Council? Questions, comments? Councilmember Wendell.
I would just make a comment related to the one-time bonuses. I think we're living through kind of unpredictable times in terms of compensation levels, and so as we establish employee compensation levels, trying to project a year out, it has been hard to predict those inflationary increases. I think in this particular case, if our revenues are in a place in this fiscal year where we can afford to do a one-time bonus as a retention effort for current employees, I'm happy that we're able to do that. So I appreciate staff bringing this recommendation forward. I think, again, we all are hearing a lot about how challenging it is to recruit and retain high-quality staff. And I think we learn more and more every day how crucial our staff are to keeping basic city operations happening. So this investment to me seems like a real worthwhile one, and I didn't want it to move to the stage of passage without making that note.
Thank you, Mr. I'm always the guy that says no to spending money, but this is a one-time deal that I think it's okay, in my opinion. I think our folks deserve it, every single person, and I hope they enjoy it and are thankful for it. So, thank you.
Councilmember Tilton Burn.
This would provide are very worthy, both from a employee retention perspective, but also as you look at the employment market in Brookings, it's not uncommon to see even fast food chains providing things like one-time sign-on bonuses and other incentives that are happening kind of across the community. And so I do think that this falls in line pretty well with a lot of incentives that other employers are able to provide. This is the way that the city is able to provide that. And so to echo previous sentiments, if we're able to do this with the funds that we have in a one-time way, I think that it's dollars well spent.
Okay. Questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 9C, public hearing and action on commercial corridor design review overlay district along 20th Street South. Mike Struck, our community development director, will review this item.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The item before Design Review Overlay District Project on 20th Street South in the Prairie Hills Edition, just a little bit west of kind of intersection. Dakota Land Design is working on a project with the Brookings Vision Center, which they're looking to put up a new facility in a growing area of our community. The unique thing about this particular project is they are not asking for any exceptions to our commercial corridor standards. Everything meets the standards. It comes with you as a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, and I would stand for any questions you may have.
Okay. Open public hearing on this item. Is there any public comments? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any council comments or questions? Construction to start this coming spring then?
They're cautiously around yet this year.
Very good. All right.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Tilton Burn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Motion passes. Other business, action on resolution 22-085, a resolution approving special assessments for snow removal and lawn care. Ashley Wrench, our senior finance manager, will review this item.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This is 85, authorizing special assessments for snow removal and lawn care services. The City of Brookings sends invoices lawn care when properties are out of compliance with city code and city employees perform these services. In accordance with state law, outstanding invoices at the end of each year can be included on the annual special assessment roll to be applied to the owner's property taxes. The resolution authorizes the city to submit to the Brookings County Finance Office the outstanding amounts for 9 property owners for approximately $4,200 to be collected with property tax payable in 2023. Staff recommends approval of this ordinance as presented, and I'll stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there any council questions or comments? Councilmember Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amounts paid, like in the past that we've done this before, are they generally paid? And then I have one more question.
We do send out invoices, and if they are, and some people pay, some people don't, and so this is how we collect it.
So are these folks, are they unable to do this or just unwilling to do this? Do we know? Does anybody know?
I think it's a combination of circumstances that cause people to, take care of snow removal or lawn care.
I can tell you from a staff perspective, Mike's crew does, usually it's many, many weeks of letters and an understanding that it's a lot cheaper to have someone else do it, even if you contract it out versus the city. The city actually, we really don't have much time to do this. Sometimes we even try to contract it out, but at the end of the day, sometimes our employees are forced to do it with our equipment. So there are a number of opportunities that we try to take in order to have people do it on their own.
I don't want to think folks that have health issues or any other issues like that where they can't do it, that we're not sending them a bill and we're trying to figure something out for them, like any other places in town that could pay for it or would volunteer for it. I just don't want to run into something like that.
Okay. We'll wait for, and then I'll put this, do you have any comments? All right, please call the roll.
Niemeyer.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburg.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Duran.
Aye.
Okay, item 10B, action on the 2022-2024 Teamster Local Union Number 120 Police Union Agreement. Paul Brasino, our city manager, will review this item.
Actually, Casey will be
We're gonna
presenting
let
these items
Casey
for
do
us.
it.
He'll
All right.
present this item as well as the other item. He's been instrumental in carrying this forward and keeping us agreements.
All right.
Thanks, Paul. Very kind of you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. For those that don't know, my name is Casey Bell, and I'm the HR Risk Manager for the city. This item approves an update to the existing 3-year agreement between the city and the Teamster Local Union Number 120, who represents the police department employees. The existing 3-year agreement is set to expire December 31st, 2024. The proposed updated agreement will include 2023 salaries and an additional article change regarding promotions. There's an automatic annual opener for 2024. Due to the fluctuation of sales tax and the local economy, it's essential the city allows salaries as an annual opener to ensure expenses of increased pay do not outpace revenues. The updated agreement contains up to a 5% merit increase for employees based on performance for 2023. Employees that reach the max salary of their range will be eligible for up to a 5% one-time payout based on performance. Employees will be eligible for up to a $1,400 one-time compensation supplement dependent on sales tax performance in 2023. Additionally, employees will be eligible for up to a $2,000 one-time compensation supplement in 2022. The negotiated salaries and one-time compensation supplement are accounted for in the proposed 2023 budget, and city staff recommends approval of their agreement.
I would just note, was passed just a second ago. It's not in addition to.
Okay.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, does the council have any questions or comments? Okay, please call the roll.
Specker.
Aye.
Tiltonburg.
Aye.
Wendell. Aye. Avery.
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Duran.
Aye.
Niemeyer.
Aye. Item 10C, action on the 2022-2024 Teamster Local Union Number 120 City General Union Agreement.
Thank you,
Casey will-
Mayor. This item approves an update to the existing 3-year agreement with the 20, who represents the city general employees. The existing 3-year agreement is set to expire December 31st, 2024. The proposed updated agreement will include 2023 salaries. There's an additional automatic annual opener for 2024 salaries. The updated agreement contains up to a 5% merit increase for employees based on performance for 2023. Employees that reach the max salary of their range will be eligible for up to a 5% one-time payout based on performance. Employees will be eligible for up to a $1,400 one-time compensation supplement dependent on sales tax performance in 2023. And lastly, as Paul noted, it would also include that $2,000 one-time compensation supplement for 2022. The negotiated salaries and one-time compensation supplement are accounted for in the proposed 2023 budget, and city staff recommends approval of this agreement as well.
Thanks, Casey. To approve.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, does council have any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Tildenburn,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Collins,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to slip from item 11 to item 12 because Jake's on his way up here to give us our progress report, and we'll just move on.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I think IT is making sure the mic. The October 22 progress report, first up is our food insecurity. They're doing a fantastic job here, actually a little bit ahead of schedule at this time. Anticipation is that they will finish up here in early December, with all of the partners planning to move in January. As members of the council and the public can see on the screen, some of the things that are being worked on right now or in the very near future, as well as some of those longer term outlook items to include ceiling rough-ins, ductwork in November, as well as cabinets, tiling finishes, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and then of course the plumbing or the punch list items to finalize that facility. So moving along very well, ahead of schedule, on budget, and going smoothly. Interchange project continues to be underway as well. We're still on track for a substantial completion date of July 2023. I think to the collective relief of the community, 20th Street South and 22nd Avenue is back open and all the traffic signals are operational. We do thank the members of the public for their understanding during this time, as it did provide certainly an inconvenience at that intersection, but it was a necessary part of this component of this project, and we're happy to have that intersection not only open, but well improved. Annual overlay project continues to wrap up as well. This is expected to complete later this month in October of 2022. As members of the council and public can see the work that has been performed to this point. A few of those outstanding items that will be completed yet this month include 14th Avenue seeding and opening, finishing the pavement on 3rd Street that leads up to the Brookings Health System, finishing some of the approaches related to the alleys that have already been paved, and the continuing concrete sidewalk repairs that were bid out. We want to congratulate Officer Seth Bonema and his partner Gina. They made quite a significant stop here in the recent past. They had received a motorist complaint, and as they continued and carried out that stop successfully, they found 32 pounds of methamphetamine as well as 1 pound of fentanyl. This is a great accomplishment by our police department to not only stop these items from coming into Brookings, but potentially other communities as well. So this is a wonderful opportunity that they had. We want to recognize our Community Development Director, Mike Struck, as well as our City Planner, Ryan Miller, and everyone else in the Community Development Department, as October is National Community Planning Month. Planning provides comprehensive perspective, which leads to safer, resilient, more equitable, and more prosperous communities. So thank you to all of our staff who work in those regards. We did notice a significant concrete spill on October 10th. There was a truckload of wet concrete on 6th Street near the Swiftel Center that dumped cement that ranged in thickness anywhere from 1 to 8 inches. Our city street staff and public works staff did respond promptly with 13 staff, 2 loaders, 2 street sweepers, skid steer, dump truck, and trailer. They did have that road back up and fully operational in about 2 hours, so appreciate their quick response and willingness to help out in this unforeseen situation. Talking to our fire chief, Bolzer, For most communities and nationwide, fire prevention is a week. We've turned that into a month and a half here in the city of Brookings so that we give an opportunity for our fire staff, both paid and volunteers, to interact with youth and folks all throughout our community to explain the importance of fire prevention and hopefully in the course of saving lives through that process. So they had visits from all 3 Hillcrest kindergarten classes at the main fire station. They paid a visit to the Boys and Girls Club, to Maderi Elementary, and then participated in a breakfast with badges event at the Camelot Intermediate School with other public safety officials. We want to recognize our safety committee for an excellent award that they had received from the South Dakota Public Insurance Alliance. They had received gold and platinum level safety and loss control awards, which were presented in early October at the South Dakota Municipal League Conference. The city last received these types of awards back in 2017. A lot of this work is really dedicated and commended to our safety committee that we have. The activities that were completed to really work towards receiving these awards were safety training, not only having a safety committee, but acting at a very high and proficient level, facility inspections, as well as a focus on mental health awareness for staff. We held a meet and greet here recently for our new police chief, Michael Drake, as well as our public works director, John Thompson. This was held at the Mosaic Wine Bar on October 19th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. This was a very well-attended event, and we want to thank the Brookings Chamber of Commerce for organizing and hosting that event. As Paul had mentioned earlier during the budget presentation, as city staff, we're thankful for the commitment to city council, from city council to staff and training and development. This led to bringing in professional development opportunities across the organization. We recently held our first event with John T. Meyer, which was very well received, to focus on the core values of our organization, employee engagement, as well as culture. There is another event planned for November for a much larger group of employees that will focus on customer service as well as conflict resolution. The Swiftall Center hosted 24 event days in the month of October. This included the 10th annual Pink Ladies Dart Tournament, which hosted over 2,000 attendees. This was record-breaking attendance as well as food and beverage sales. The Brett Young concert hosted 1,685 attendees. Our last item for tonight is we want to make sure that the whole community is aware that they are invited to the Mayor's Celebration, our holiday celebration and Mayor's Awards. This event will be held on Thursday, December 1st from 5 to 8 p.m. and at the Swiftall Center. So ask folks at home to save the date for the Mayor's event. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jake. Comments, questions from council? Thanks, Jake. Okay, I'm going to go back to item 11, City Council member introduction of topics and future discussion. Anybody have anything they want to bring up? I do have a couple items of my own. One is we used to have reports a couple mayors back for the liaisons that go to BMU and the hospital. So as you go to the monthly meetings on those, I'd like a little bit of a verbal report. We could do it at this time, or we can do it in the open forum part. I don't care. Maybe in the presentations. But kind of keep that in mind. I might be requesting that next month. The other thing that, I don't know if it's made the paper or not, but we are the 33rd place safest college community in the United States this year. I think that we need to give kudos to our public safety programs, our police, our fire department. That also includes our community. That tells a lot of parents that they can count on us for their children to be safe while they're attending the university here. It gives a lot of credit to all the law enforcement agencies besides our own police department. And then next meeting will be on the 8th of November. Presentations from SDSU Student Association. We're going to introduce a new staff member. Currently, we have no first readings or contracts or change orders. Then we have second readings on the 3 or 4 items that we had tonight. And then other business, council prioritization of social services funding rubric. Heidi Gullickson will present that. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none more, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion adjourned.